Hello there, you wonderful language explorers and dear listeners. A huge warm welcome back to another engaging episode of Idiom Insights. I'm Emma, and it's truly a privilege to be back with you, ready to unravel more of the fascinating complexities and colorful expressions found in everyday English. Thanks for choosing to join us.
And a massive, enthusiastic hello from me too. It's Jack, your companion on this continuing journey through the world of idioms, ready to explore meanings, share examples, and hopefully provide a few sparks of insight along the way. Welcome back to Idiom Insights. Emma, today's idioms feel particularly relevant to everyday life. They cover conflict, starting new ventures, emotional reactions, and social trends. It really highlights how these phrases help us navigate and describe the messy, dynamic reality of human interaction, doesn't it?
It absolutely does, Jack. They provide shortcuts to express quite nuanced situations and judgments. Understanding idioms like the ones we have today about unfair tactics, immediate starts, impulsive actions, and following the crowd allows learners to grasp the subtle critiques, the bursts of energy, the flashes of emotion, and the social observations that native speakers often communicate implicitly through these phrases. It's about understanding the energy and attitude behind the words, which is so crucial for real fluency.
Precisely. Grasping that underlying energy is key. So, let's tap into the energy of today's expressions. On this detailed episode of Idiom Insights, we're going to carefully dissect these 4 impactful idioms. First, an unfair tactic in conflict. Hit below the belt. Where does this fighting metaphor come from, and why is it considered so wrong? Next, starting with immediate impact. Hit the ground running, a phrase suggesting dynamism and preparedness from the outset. Then, actions driven by sudden emotion, in the heat of the moment. We'll explore how strong feelings can override judgment. And finally, joining a popular trend, jump on the bandwagon. What does it say about motivation and conformity?
A really potent mix today, Jack, focusing on behavior and motivation in different contexts. Before we step into the ring to discuss hitting below the belt, we'd just like to share that gentle, friendly reminder from your Idiom Insights team. If you find these episodes valuable and want to ensure you don't miss out on any of our future linguistic explorations, please do take just a moment to hit that subscribe or follow button on your podcast platform. It's the easiest way to keep learning with us.
Yes, please do. It ensures you get your regular dose of idiom insight without having to search. And of course, we are always incredibly grateful for likes and positive ratings. They genuinely help other dedicated learners find idiom insights and let us know that we're creating content that resonates with you. Okay, friendly encouragement complete. Emma, let's talk about that first phrase. Hit below the belt clearly originates from combat sports, doesn't it? What makes such an action so unfair, both literally and metaphorically?
You're exactly right about the origin, Jack. It comes directly from boxing and other combat sports, where striking an opponent below the waistline, below the belt, is strictly forbidden because it targets a vulnerable area and is considered unsportsmanlike conduct. Metaphorically, therefore, to hit below the belt means to say something unfair, unkind, or cruel, especially during an argument or debate that targets a person's vulnerabilities, personal weaknesses, or irrelevant sensitive issues, rather than addressing the actual point of contention. It's considered a low blow, an unfair tactic designed to hurt personally rather than win the argument fairly.
So it's about breaking the unwritten rules of fair argument or discussion. Instead of tackling the issue logically, you resort to personal attacks or bring up things that are completely irrelevant but known to be hurtful or sensitive to the other person. It could be mentioning a past failure, a physical insecurity, a family problem, or any private matter that has no bearing on the current disagreement, but is used solely to wound or gain an unfair advantage. It often feels like a betrayal of sorts, doesn't it? Using knowledge of someone's vulnerabilities against them. It definitely carries a strong negative judgment against the person doing the hitting.
Absolutely, Jack. The negative judgment is strong. It implies the person resorting to such tactics can't win the argument on its merits, so they stoop to unfair personal attacks. It's seen as cowardly by some, and certainly as unethical in fair debate. For example, in a professional disagreement about project strategy, if one colleague says to another, "Well, maybe if you hadn't failed your last certification exam, you'd understand this," that's a classic hit below the belt. The exam failure is irrelevant to the current strategy discussion, but is used to undermine and hurt the other person personally. It derails productive conversation and often causes lasting resentment.
Derailing the conversation and causing resentment, those are key outcomes. It shifts the focus from the issue to personal pain. Let's hear how this unfortunate tactic plays out between Mia and Mark. What unfair comment gets made in their disagreement?
Mark, we need to talk about the holiday budget again. I've looked at our savings, and I really don't think we can afford that 2-week luxury trip we were initially hoping for this year. Maybe we need to consider a shorter trip or somewhere less expensive.
Less expensive? But Mia, we talked about this. We both agreed we deserved a really special holiday this year after working so hard. I've been looking forward to that specific resort for months. Why are you suddenly trying to back out now?
I'm not trying to back out. I'm just being realistic about our finances right now. Unexpected bills came up, remember? We need to be sensible. A shorter trip could still be lovely and much less stressful financially.
Sensible? It just feels like you're always the one trying to cut back, always focusing on the negatives. Maybe if you weren't so worried about money all the time, you'd actually let yourself enjoy planning something nice for once. Perhaps it's related to you feeling insecure about your freelance income lately?
Wow, Mark. Bringing my freelance income insecurity into this discussion about a holiday budget, that felt completely unnecessary and really rather nasty. That was a definite hit below the belt. My feelings about my income have nothing to do with calculating what we can realistically afford for a holiday right now. Stick to the point, please.
You're right. That was unfair. I'm sorry. I'm just disappointed about the holiday, but I shouldn't have brought your work into it like that. Let's just look at the budget figures again, calmly.
Ouch. You can feel the sting of Mark's comment there. He clearly used Mia's known vulnerability, her freelance income insecurity, unfairly in an argument about something else entirely, the holiday budget.
Absolutely. Mia immediately identifies his comment as a hit below the belt, pointing out its irrelevance and unkindness. Mark, to his credit, recognizes his unfair tactic and apologizes. It perfectly demonstrates how the idiom is used to call out personal attacks that cross the line of fair argument. Listeners, how do you respond when you feel someone has hit below the belt?
Now, from unfair attacks, let's move to highly effective starts. Our second idiom today is hit the ground running. Jack, this phrase paints a picture of immediate, energetic action. What does it imply about starting something new?
It implies an incredibly fast, efficient, and effective start, Emma. If someone hits the ground running when they begin a new job, project, or activity, it means they start doing it immediately with great energy, enthusiasm, and competence, without any delay, hesitation, or period of adjustment needed. They are immediately productive and effective from the very beginning. It suggests they were well prepared, highly motivated, and able to integrate seamlessly into the new situation.
Immediately productive and effective. That's the key takeaway. It's the opposite of a slow start, where someone needs a lot of initial training, hand-holding, or time just to figure things out. Someone who hits the ground running doesn't need that acclimatization period. They seem to understand the requirements instantly and start contributing meaningfully from day one. Think about a new CEO joining a company. If they immediately start implementing positive changes, meeting key people, and demonstrating clear leadership within their first few days, commentators might say they hit the ground running. It conveys impressive proactivity and competence.
It certainly does sound impressive. It suggests a high level of skill and perhaps prior preparation or relevant experience that allows for such a seamless and impactful start. It's often used as high praise, especially in professional contexts. Our new marketing manager really hit the ground running. She launched 3 successful campaigns in her first month. That statement clearly signals admiration for her immediate effectiveness. It implies she didn't waste any time getting up to speed. She was already running at full speed from the moment she arrived.
Exactly. Running at full speed from the start. It's a very positive idiom associated with efficiency, energy, and competence right from the beginning. Let's hear from Mia and Mark. Who are they describing who made such an immediate impact?
Mark, how is the new team member, Chloe, settling into the department? She started on Monday, didn't she? It often takes new people a few weeks just to find their feet.
Settling in? Mia, settling in doesn't even begin to describe it. Chloe has been absolutely phenomenal right from day one. On Monday morning, she'd already read all the briefing documents we sent her beforehand. By lunchtime, she'd introduced herself to everyone relevant. And by the end of her first day, she'd already identified a key inefficiency in our workflow and proposed a sensible solution.
Seriously? On her first day? That's incredibly proactive. Most new starters spend their first week just figuring out the coffee machine and the email system.
I know. Then yesterday, Tuesday, her second day, she volunteered to take the lead on analyzing that complex data set we've all been avoiding because it looked too daunting. She stayed a little late, and this morning she presented her initial findings, which were clear, insightful, and incredibly useful.
Wow, so she's already contributing meaningfully and tackling complex tasks after just 2 days? It sounds like she didn't need any adjustment period at all.
None whatsoever. She completely hit the ground running. Honestly, it feels like she's been part of the team for months already. Everyone is incredibly impressed by her energy and immediate competence. She just jumped right in and got started effectively from the first minute.
That's a fantastic description of someone making an immediate positive impact. Chloe clearly didn't need a slow start or extensive onboarding.
Not at all. Mark uses "hit the ground running" to perfectly capture her immediate effectiveness, proactivity, and competence right from the very beginning of her new role. It vividly conveys her impressive and energetic start. So, listeners of Idiom Insights, what helps someone hit the ground running in a new situation?
Now, let's move from energetic starts to actions taken under emotional pressure. Our third idiom is "in the heat of the moment." Emma, the word heat strongly suggests intense emotion. What does this phrase excuse or explain?
It primarily explains, and sometimes attempts to excuse, actions or words that were impulsive and driven by strong, immediate emotion rather than rational thought, Jack. When someone does or says something in the heat of the moment, it means they acted spontaneously and without thinking clearly because they were overcome by intense feelings like anger, excitement, passion, fear, or frustration at that particular time. It implies the action wasn't premeditated or necessarily reflective of their true character or intentions, but rather a product of temporary emotional intensity. People often use it when apologizing for something they regret saying or doing.
So the key elements are impulsiveness, strong emotion driving the action, and a lack of rational consideration at that specific time. It's often followed by regret, isn't it? You might shout something hurtful during a fierce argument and later apologize by saying, "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean that. I just said it in the heat of the moment." You're explaining that your anger took over your judgment temporarily. Or someone might make an extravagant promise when caught up in a wave of excitement or generosity and later have to backtrack, explaining they spoke in the heat of the moment without fully considering the implications.
Exactly. It attributes the action to the temporary, intense emotional state rather than to considered judgment or malice. It doesn't necessarily absolve the person of responsibility for their actions, but it provides context, suggesting the behavior was atypical and driven by overwhelming feeling. It's like saying, "My emotions got the better of me right then." It acknowledges a temporary loss of control or perspective due to the intensity of the situation. Understanding this can sometimes lead to forgiveness, or at least a better understanding of why someone acted out of character.
That context is crucial. It differentiates between a calculated act and an impulsive, emotional one. Let's listen to Mia and Mark, who said or did something they perhaps regret, driven by immediate emotion.
Mark, remember last night when we were having that debate about politics with our neighbors, the Hendersons? It got quite intense towards the end, didn't it?
Intense is one word for it. Mr. Henderson was getting quite worked up about his point of view, and honestly, I was getting pretty frustrated with some of his arguments too. We were definitely disagreeing quite strongly.
I know, but Mark, towards the end, you said something quite cutting to him about his outdated opinions belonging in the last century. You saw the look on his face, didn't you? He looked genuinely hurt and shut down completely after that.
Did I really say belonging in the last century? Oh dear, yes, I suppose I did get rather carried away. He was being so stubborn, and I just lost my patience for a second. I felt myself getting really angry about what he was saying.
I could see you were getting angry, but that comment felt quite personal and dismissive, more than just disagreeing with his point. It was a bit harsh, Mark.
You're right. It was too harsh. I immediately felt bad after I said it, but the conversation moved on awkwardly. Honestly, Mia, I didn't intend to be personally insulting. I think I just said it in the heat of the moment because I was so frustrated with the argument. It wasn't a considered remark, it just slipped out in anger. I should probably find a chance to apologize to him later.
You can hear Mark's regret quite clearly there. The political debate became heated, emotions ran high, and he lashed out with a hurtful comment.
Yes, and he explains his action by saying he said it in the heat of the moment, indicating it was an impulsive outburst driven by frustration and anger. not a premeditated insult. This provides context for his regrettable comment and paves the way for his intended apology. It perfectly shows the idiom used to explain emotionally driven, unthinking actions. Listeners, do you think saying something in the heat of the moment fully excuses it?
And finally, let's look at our fourth idiom, which relates to social conformity and trends. Jump on the bandwagon. Jack, this phrase suggests joining something that's already rolling and popular. What are the implications?
The implications are often slightly negative or dismissive, Emma, suggesting a lack of originality or independent thought. To jump on the bandwagon means to start doing, supporting, or liking something only after it has already become popular, fashionable, or successful, primarily because many other people are doing it. The bandwagon itself refers to a wagon carrying a band in a parade. Historically, politicians might literally jump onto the bandwagon to associate themselves with the popular spectacle. Idiomatically, it implies joining a trend or movement, not necessarily out of genuine belief or interest, but rather to be associated with its popularity or success, or simply to follow the crowd.
Following the crowd because it's popular, that's the core idea. It often implies that the person joining late hasn't thought critically about the trend or cause themselves, but is simply adopting it because it's the fashionable thing to do. You might see it with investment trends. When a particular type of investment suddenly becomes hugely popular and everyone starts talking about it, people who invest only then might be accused of just jumping on the bandwagon rather than having done thorough research earlier. Or think about fashion fads. People suddenly start wearing a particular style only after it becomes ubiquitous.
Exactly. It often contrasts with being an early adopter, or someone who held an opinion or liked something before it was popular. The phrase carries a slight whiff of opportunism or lack of authenticity. You might hear someone critically remark, "Now that the local team is winning the championship, suddenly everyone is wearing their shirts and claiming to be lifelong fans. They're just jumping on the bandwagon." It implies their support is shallow and based only on the team's current success, unlike the true fans who supported them through thick and thin.
That contrast with true fans or early believers is often implied. It questions the motive behind joining. Is it genuine interest or just wanting to be part of the popular thing? Let's listen to Mia and Mark's final dialogue. What trend are they discussing people joining?
Mark, have you noticed how suddenly everyone seems to be baking sourdough bread? It feels like every second person on my social media feed is posting pictures of their homemade loaves.
Ha 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 ha. Yes, I've noticed that too. It seemed to happen almost overnight, didn't it? A few months ago, hardly anyone was talking about starters and proofing times. And now, suddenly, everyone's an expert artisan baker.
Exactly. It's great that people are getting into baking, of course, but it does feel a bit like a massive trend that everyone has suddenly decided to join. Remember how Chloe was completely uninterested in baking before, and now she's posting constantly about her sourdough journey?
Oh yes, Chloe is definitely on board. And David from work too. He never cooked anything more complicated than pasta. And now, he's obsessed with maintaining his sourdough starter. It's funny how these things catch on.
It really is. While it's a nice hobby, it does feel a bit like a lot of people have just jumped on the bandwagon because it became the cool, fashionable thing to do during lockdown and beyond. I wonder how many will still be baking sourdough in 6 months' time.
That's always the question with these trends, isn't it? It's easy to jump on the bandwagon when something is popular, but sticking with it requires genuine interest. Still, at least it's a relatively harmless bandwagon to jump on, better than some trends.
That's a perfect example of observing a popular trend and questioning the motivation of those joining it late. The sudden, widespread adoption of sourdough baking makes them suspect some people are just following the crowd.
Precisely. Mia explicitly uses "jumped on the bandwagon" to describe people joining the trend primarily because it became popular, implying their interest might not be deep or long-lasting. It neatly illustrates the idiom's meaning of following a fashionable activity due to its popularity. Listeners of Idiom Insights, what bandwagons have you seen people jump on recently?
And with that observation on trends, we conclude our exploration of 4 more incredibly useful English idioms. It's been great digging into these today. Let's swiftly recap the phrases we've covered.
Another fantastic discussion. Today on Idiom Insights, we explored hit below the belt, to make an unfair or cruel remark attacking vulnerabilities. Hit the ground running, to start a new activity immediately with full energy and competence. In the heat of the moment. acting or speaking impulsively due to strong emotion, often regretted. Jump on the bandwagon to join a popular trend or activity because many others are doing it.
Wonderful. We truly hope that our detailed explanations, explorations of nuance, and the contextual dialogues have helped you gain a really thorough understanding of these common idioms. Remember, understanding the context and the speaker's intention is key.
Absolutely. Keep listening, keep reading, keep questioning. And if you found today's episode of Idiom Insights valuable and it helped you on your English learning path, we would be incredibly grateful if you could take just a moment to leave us a like, a rating, or even a short positive review. Your feedback means so much.
And please make sure you're subscribed or following Idiom Insights. It guarantees you won't miss our next episode, where we'll continue to explore the rich, fascinating, and sometimes puzzling world of English idioms together. We love having you in our community.
We really do. Thank you for your time and attention today. Until next time, keep up your amazing language learning efforts, stay curious, and find joy in the journey. Goodbye for now.
Bye, everyone. Take care, stay safe, and maybe avoid jumping on any unwise bandwagons. Happy learning.